Welcome to the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast.
Coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
I'm Charles.
And I'm Marcus. And this is a Packers podcast for fans living inside enemy territory.
This is the new sound for the new era. Well, Marcus, that might be the new sound to the new era, but the new sound is more and more starting to sound like a bunch of guys knocking their head against a brick wall.
Yeah, or boos, or sarcastic cheers when the Packers get a first down finally with like 5 minutes left.
I mean, at that point, is it sarcastic or is it like, God, I just want to get excited about something? You know, like
I gotta think it's a mixture of both. Like some people are like, oh, finally first down, but some people are like, oh my God, a first down. Yeah, great.
It's just and the game wasn't close. I mean, technically, you know, we were kind of in it at the end of the first half. But it's just for the last few games, there's just been too many way too slow of starts. To even make me like feel confident like moving forward, right? Like 4 or 5, I think 5 or 6. I think it was 6 3 and outs to start a game. I mean, that's just like, I don't care if it's only one score at the end of the half. Like, you're not winning that game. You're just not. Nothing's going your way at all. And it's just weird. And I think we could spend a lot of time dissecting the game, dissecting each player, looking at the line. A lot of complaints about the defense and their run stopping ability. Being rushed on more than anyone else, I think, in the NFL. But on everyone's mind is Jordan Love. After 3 weeks, 2-1, you know, we were touting how he had, I think, the most touchdowns thrown in the league. Fantastic passer rating. The one thing that was shaky was his completion percentage, but he was winning games and he was making a couple really nice throws in those first 3 weeks. I personally haven't seen anything since then, and we can talk about why that might be. But I guess, how are you feeling specifically about Jordan Love? We can talk about the team later, but really the franchise is about the quarterback. And how do we feel about our new, hopefully, franchise quarterback?
You know, yeah, he played well the first couple of weeks of the season, and then, you know, he won a game against the Saints, you know, really due in large part to them missing the field goal. So it was more of a, you know, them losing than.
But he still made some throws.
He made some throws, and the next couple of games he's been not very good, which is frustrating. You know, I would say this Vikings game though, he looked like he was getting a little bit better. I think if it weren't for so many drops and penalties and missed opportunities, you know, this would look a lot different for Jordan Love. I mean, he didn't have a terrible stat line. I would say the biggest thing that I notice is his decision-making needs to get a lot better. I can think of a couple things like, you know, the last drive of the game, for example, one of the last drives offensively, after we picked up that fumble by the Vikings, you know, on 3rd and 16, he goes into the end zone for Christian Watson, even though it looked like he had an open receiver or an open enough receiver to at least, you know, pick up 10 or 12 yards, get closer, a more manageable 4th down. And then he runs the ball on 4th and 16 instead of trying to throw it. And unless you're Michael Vick or, you know, Cam Newton, I don't know what quarterback is going to, you know, pick up 16 yards on a 4th down any day of the week.
So he had a couple
things like that, and
then that too. It was like 3rd and 16.
Yeah,
I think twice, and he got like 12 yards each, making him, I think, our leading rusher for the day, if I'm not mistaken. But that actually opens up an interesting point. So like slow starts, then he always looks better in the second half. You just said he was starting to look better in that Vikings game. But is that because he's looking better, or is that, and I wish I had a smart enough football mind to tell you, but like, or is that Minnesota, Denver, and the Raiders kind of getting more into like a zone coverage where, yeah, that small stuff in between, I'm going to let you hit that all day now. But when the game is starting, he's just not hitting, when they're playing more man or playing more aggressive or what, when they're not willing to give up the short yardage, is when he's really struggling. I'm just worried that we're getting fooled into some of the stat lines because he's getting some of this, I hate to say garbage time, but kind of garbage time stats.
Yeah, I would say in the second half he hit that long one to Jaden Reed for a huge gain, and another one, I think later on to pretty much the same play to Jaden Reed, who gets the ball wrestled away from the defender. It was a great interception, but not a bad throw.
I thought that was good. I thought that was a catch. So yeah,
yeah. Well, and aside from that though, like there was the Aaron Jones drop on the first drive, where that probably is a first down if he catches it in stride and runs.
Penalties
on third down. Yeah, on that third down in that drive, he throws a dart to Luke Musgrave, who just right to his hands and just can't catch it. And that's, you know what I mean? He has a great throw in the red zone to Jaden Reed at the goal line, and he drops it. I mean,
second and 20 multiple times after a holding penalty. Like, yeah, I mean we're not putting him in a great position. Because the defense knows that we're going to be passing the ball then, right? So it's harder to run. I get that. So you're saying, it sounds like you're saying, well, wait a minute, maybe we can't judge him too much because everything around him is looking down. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, Jordan Love has not been great this season. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But if he had an Allen Lazard or a Devontae Adams, he doesn't have a veteran receiver or a veteran tight end, or even a veteran O-line at this point to kind of help him. If you're gonna have a quarterback in his first year as a starter struggling, somebody's got to help him out and pick him up. You can't have all these mistakes, all of these penalties, all of these drops, all these missed opportunities, and just lay that all on the quarterback. I mean, yes, he hasn't been great. He's missed some throws. His accuracy hasn't been very good. But you know what I mean? Like, our pets' heads are falling off.
Yes, he hasn't thrown the ball very well. He doesn't see the field very well.
That's not what I said. That's not what I'm saying. He throws a good ball.
I'm kidding.
He throws a good ball, but I think the biggest things are the accuracy, which I think he's gonna dial in with some more time. These reps are, he's just got to get the experience, and then the decision making. The decision making is, I think, also can improve. And I think a lot of the decisions he makes are because they're just constantly in this catch-up mode, and he feels like he needs to do something. He needs to throw the deep ball. He needs to, run the ball, make a play on 4th and 16. So I think that stuff will come with time. I don't think it's going to be as bad as this year moving forward. But I'm honestly not convinced yet that he is going to be our quarterback for the next decade.
Yeah, I mean, especially depending on how low this pick gets, right? I'm not going there yet, but yeah, I mean, it's. I heard it said this way. There's 3 camps that you can put a quarterback. You win because of your quarterback. You win with your quarterback, or your quarterback is essentially the reason why you're not winning, right? So you win because of your quarterback, you win despite your quarterback, or your quarterback is so bad that you can't win with him. And I feel like he has not clearly been around long enough or have a track record long enough to say, hey, any one of these games so far we won because of Jordan Love. But the first couple of weeks we were feeling like, hey, we can really win with him. And I'm still there, but like the slow starts is making me kind of low. Like, he's right on the fringe of like, man, I don't know if we can win with him this year, right? We'll put it in a bubble this year. I'm not thinking about next year, about on at least in this part of the conversation, but he's just not there yet, right? He's just not.
No, he's not there yet, but at the same time, no one's there right now. I mean, our best players aren't playing very well, to be completely frank. I mean, on the offensive side of the ball, when you've got Aaron Jones dropping balls and you've got A.J. Dillon, 2 yards or less a carry, you know what I mean? You have an offensive line that played better this week, but like has been awful for the most part this season. I don't know how. Yeah, I just think it's unfair to blame Jordan Love for all that stuff because he was always going to have a tough year. He was always going to be a struggle. He's a first year starter, but it's always going to look a lot worse when you have nothing going for you. And this team really has nothing going for it offensively, especially.
But yes, I completely agree. If you put your mind of like, hey, I'm trying to win the division, I'm trying to make the playoffs, which for a few weeks there we're like, hey, wait a minute here. But remember, before the season, we were all about this year is all about Jordan Love. How does he play with the new receivers? And I guess I'm just getting a little bit nervous here. Unless we can, I mean, we got a lot of football left. But I'm starting to get nervous here because I haven't seen what I asked for, and all I asked for was a Super Bowl ring. No, all I asked for was, hey, I'm okay with losing games. I'm okay with being 500. Heck, I'm even okay with being slightly below 500. But let's show some life and let's be in all of these games. And the games that we've been losing, even the ones that are like closer in score, like they're not even that close, right? Like we just are outplayed, and I'm not seeing the gel at least since week 3. It's like the Lions stomped it out of us, and like Love and the offense and LaFleur, a lot, even LaFleur is still like shell shocked, and his head is still ringing back from the Thursday night game against the Lions in week 4.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about LaFleur for a second. How much of this is
I don't know.
As a coach and a leader.
This analyst job is hard. It's a hard job because I don't freaking know. And I'm actually saying something from his press conference. Like he's kind of got this attitude. It's like, hey, why aren't we doing this? And LaFleur goes, if I knew that, we wouldn't be doing it. And I like his honesty, but also I'm like, yeah, but this is a chess game, right? There's got to be some kind of counterpunch that we can go to in these games. So he always is the guy who's going to take the blame for his quarterback. Most head coaches are. But it's either his fault because he's not calling the right plays, or it's Love's fault because LaFleur has to call these plays. Like, there's a lot of, like, I noticed there's not a lot of receivers moving, catching the ball in stride, right? There's no, like, slants. There's no, like, over the middle stuff. It's all like the one that you referred to earlier where Aaron Jones dropped it in the flat, right? Or quick hitches, 4, 5, 6 yards up, turning around, and then the defender closing in, driving in on the receiver. So it's a bang, bang play. We're not seeing any open receivers. And is that because Love isn't seeing them and isn't throwing it to them? Is that because of the scheme and what we're trying to do? There isn't that option available. Or is LaFleur saying, I don't trust Love yet to make those throws, therefore I'm going to be extra safe? And it just never seems to work when you're extra safe. Because
when you start to play too conservatively and play not to lose, that's when you force someone like Jordan Love into the mistakes. I mean, that's when those things happen. You kind of have to let him grip it and rip it this year. That's kind of what this is all about. That's the frustrating thing for me is like, look, just let him go out there and ball and see what he can do. The expectations for this season were always low. We're the youngest team in the NFL. He's a first-year starting quarterback. We have no leadership on offense, really. And that's part of the problem, too. And I think Jordan Love definitely has a lot of work to do when it comes to, hitting guys in stride. And I think the receivers and the tight ends also have a lot of work to do to make sure everyone's on the same page and running the right route. Like why do you have 3 receivers bunched, at the top of the route when, you should have those guys spread out? And, why is Jordan Love throwing behind receivers all the time? Is it him? Is it an issue with timing? Is it an issue with them being on the same page? Was the route running correctly? I think it's a lot of that stuff.
Is he looking off defenders properly?
Right.
I don't know what it is.
He's also taking too much time to make his decisions, I think. I think he's over analyzing when he drops back, and you just have to, and again, that stuff's going to come with experience. He's going to be better at reading a defense, and he's going to get better at anticipating what they're going to do instead of thinking like, oh, this is what the defense is doing. I'm reacting to that, because you can't be reactionary as a quarterback in the NFL. You really have to just anticipate and make
There
a
is
decision
there
quickly.
is
And that's
something there.
go
There's
ahead.
something. What you just said is, and I can't see it. I can't fix it. I know when you slow down the play, you can kind of point things out. But like I go back to our previous quarterback. Every time he dropped back, then you could kind of see him loading it up. We as fans would be like, all right, there's like a 80% chance that this is either going to be a completion or a defensive pass interference. You know what I mean? Like it felt that way. And obviously Rodgers had the arm to do it and the skill to do it. But whenever he threw that ball and released the ball and the camera kind of followed the ball over to the deep throw where the receiver and the defender was, it always seemed like it was a one-on-one or a wide open receiver. Whereas this year, it feels like every time you see Jordan Love like step back, I kind of get that same feeling that I used to get. Like, okay, here we go. Here's the play. And all of a sudden feels like there's one Packer receiver and at least two defenders and maybe even a third one. And I don't think that's an arm talent issue. It's what you just said. Like, did Love take too long to make the decision? Was that not the decision at all? And did he miss the opportunity on a previous play to do it? It just feels like when he's forced, like, I know he's completed some, but like he's got one of the lowest pass completion rates, I think, over like 10 or 15 yards. And it's something in that deep ball. Like that's the play that really seems to be like troubling him so far because it always feels like it's not there. And it doesn't always look on film
Yeah.
like it's his fault, right? Because again, he's like, hey, the play was there. They're just well covered. But what does he have to do differently to make sure that it is more of a one-on-one situation? And is that him or is that LaFleur? I don't know. It's it's
That's why they
it's
pay
why
us
they
the
pay
big
us the
bucks.
big bucks. But anyway, it's all fixable. We're not expecting to make the playoffs. I'd love to beat the Bears at least one more time, but hey, at the end of the day, all I want to see is some of that getting cleaned up and some hope moving into the future.
Well, right. And so with a young team like this, you need that to happen from the coaching staff, right? You can't expect a rookie or a second year player to just improve on his own. The coaches are responsible for that, I feel like. I mean, again, especially when there's no leadership on offense, you don't have a Devontae Adams or a Donald Driver or a Jordy Nelson in the locker room for these guys to learn from. And this kind of leads into my next point, and I want to talk about this is how much of this is Brian Gutekunst's responsibility? How much of this falls at his feet? Because this is the team Matt LaFleur got, and it just seems like he's just trying to sort of herd cats at this point. You got a bunch of rookies and second-year players on offense, and I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know if he needs to really simplify the scheme. But when your running game sucks, like ours has sucked so far this year, I don't know what to do because he's clearly frustrated in the press conferences and on the field with guys making mistakes, running the wrong routes, and then penalties. And it's like that has to come from the coaching staff, and they have to figure out how to drill that into these guys.
Yeah. I mean, offensively, I don't think the GM is to blame on anything in one season, right? And when you look at it on a macro level, I think you can start kind of looking at things. But like to your point, this is.
I mean, he's been the GM for what, 5 years now, and look at his draft.
Yeah,
drafts from
look at our defense
2020
though.
and
Like it's
2021.
like on paper we're supposed to. I know.
What do you mean?
On
Look at
paper
our
we're
defense.
supposed to be pretty good, but then it doesn't. There's blame to go around. I guess is my point. I think you're right. Like I think there's blame to go there, but like
there are like 3 players that are on this team from the 2020 and 2021 drafts. I feel like, that is an issue. That is that's essentially like saying you wasted 2 drafts.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to lay wins and losses at the GM, right? Let's talk about like the defensive coordinator. Let's talk about the head coach. Let's talk about players.
Sure, but he's the architect of this team, and he's the one who makes the final decision on contracts and stuff like that. And we have almost, I think, the most dead cap of any team this year.
Yeah,
dead cap money. So that's not Matt LaFleur's fault. That's not the player's fault.
And how much of it the blame goes to like he basically didn't go get anybody, right? And I kind of agreed with that, right? Like, hey, let's let these
Well, yeah, you can't. But when you have $100 million in dead cap money this year, how do you? Where are you going to get money to pay anybody?
Out of the Aaron Rodgers. I mean, this is the result of go for it the last 3 years, right? I mean, the quote unquote all in, which we never felt like we were all in. But I mean, this is what the Rams dealt with after they won the Super Bowl, right? This is what the Saints are kind of dealt with after Drew Brees left. I mean, yes, I hear you.
I mean, the Rams won a Super Bowl. I would take
Yes.
I would take the down year. I would take 3 or 4 down years. After winning a Super Bowl for sure. But what we don't want is 15, 20, 30 years. But if we're
talking about the GM and Gutekunst, then he got, give him credit then. Hey, he got us to the NFC Championship however many years in a row the last couple of years, and then we were blaming the players. And he did everything, that wasn't his fault that's
true.
That Rodgers kind of threw the ball kind of weird right on the goal line against Tampa Bay. And
but at the same time though, that was mostly a Ted Thompson team, those players. I mean, yeah, he did have those drafts from 2020 and 2021. However,
he drafted.
You're not expecting rookies to contribute a whole lot.
He drafted Love to get the fire under Rodgers' ass. He's got Rashawn Gary. He's got Lucas Van Ness, who's starting to look pretty good. I mean, I hear you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Is he though?
Swatted ball, a couple sacks. Quay Walker, you're right. He's not looking that great. I mean, he's
Quay Walker's good. I mean, I don't think that's a bad draft pick. What I'm saying is, when you have 2 drafts in a row, while Aaron Rodgers is still your quarterback, that essentially you have a lower than a 10% hit rate. That's awful.
Yeah.
That could be the thing that we look back at in a decade and be like, man, that's.
And I hate to say this, I don't want this to be true, but I mean, Christian Watson might end up being a complete bust. I mean, if you're only healthy for 30% of the year, I mean, it's.
And you can't win a contested catch.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
And you can't run a route.
Yeah, and the freaking Vikings can just draft receivers left and right. It feels like we can draft quarterbacks and they can draft receivers. I don't get it.
Well, now they're in a pickle after Kirk Cousins' injury, which that really sucks.
I really started to like him a lot more after that Netflix documentary. Just showed you how hard he worked and how much he worked to keep his body right, and it just sucks. I mean, this is the year of the Achilles.
It really sucks.
It's interesting that it happened on our field, and a grass field.
Well, I was gonna say that it can happen anywhere. I tore my Achilles on sand. Rodgers tore his on turf, and Kirk Cousins tore his.
Ladies and gentlemen, what do Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Greeley all have in common? They were all in their 30s when they tore their Achilles. Oh man, no,
every time I tell Jackie, my wife, that's Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, and she's like, you're just like Kirk Cousins. She's like, you're just like Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
But I feel for them. Vikings fans, I mean, that's thing.
Well,
but
okay,
but
and
wait,
really quick.
No, GM. Last thing on GM. I'm not willing to have the GM conversation after week 7. I'm willing to have the GM conversation after the year and before the draft and after the draft. But the team is the team, right? It's the coach, the players, the fill in the blanks all have to do their part to win games there. If at the end of the year it's just a dumpster fire, now let's talk about the GM. But I'm not willing to talk about it after 4 bad weeks of football. Is that fair? No.
I don't think so, because again, we're not just talking about this year. This year was never going to be great. I think we all knew that. We got a little hyped up the first 2 weeks of the year, but it was never going to be great. But I think it's time to start looking at Brian Gutekunst and his selections over the last 5 years and just really figure out if he's the right guy for the Packers. Because and maybe we do need to get past this season where we have a lot more cap space available next year to go and get something. But we're kind of getting to time here. But really quick, do you think the Packers end up selling this year at the trade deadline? We only have, what is the trade deadline today, or when?
I think I think Thursday.
Very
yeah.
soon. Maybe.
What do we have to sell?
Kenny Clark, Jair Alexander.
Ugh.
They just extended Rashawn Gary. So
Well,
he's not
Rashawn
going
Gary,
anywhere.
we're not getting rid of. He's too young, too good.
No. Well, they just extended him, so
Yeah,
they're not. Yeah.
I just don't feel like that's as big of a thing in football.
Aaron Jones.
Yeah, Jones. I could see. Oh, then there'd be. I don't think so because I think that would actually hinder the development of our other offensive players. Like if you don't have any,
well, that's what we're seeing right now. Yeah,
you don't have any kind of offensive threat, then Christian Watson will look that much worse and get that much more discouraged and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it. I just the focus is Jordan Love and the receivers, right? So as long as it's on the defensive side of the ball, then yeah, I think I'm all for it. I doubt it. I just don't feel like you see that many moves in the NFL. I mean, recently you've seen more in the last couple of years, but the Packers especially, I feel like really don't do that. Do you think we'll see anything?
No, probably not. I mean, I could see us getting rid of, somebody like a Kenny Clark or a Jair Alexander, but they're typically anchors of our defense, so I wouldn't bet on it, but it wouldn't shock me to see, one of our high profile defenders get traded.
I wouldn't hate that, right? We're not going to have we're going to have a better draft pick this year than we typically do. We're still going to have the Jets. The Jets got to stop freaking winning. God, that pick is getting worse and worse.
Yeah, seriously. What is happening?
It's a weird year in the NFL. I mean, geez. I thought that was losing to Denver was unacceptable after a bye. But then the Chiefs go and lose to them. So it's a weird year. I got 2 comments left to wrap this up. Number 1, Anders Carlson. Fantastic. I know he missed the field goal against the Vikings, but that doesn't count. He got another chance. And then our punter, I'm drawing a blank on his name. But it just feels like every punt is fantastic. So kickers are a position that can be around for a very long time. So Anders, if he, there's a small victory there that we can hang our hat on. And actually, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to save the other one for another episode because I want to end it on a positive note. Right. But Marcus, do you have anything else to add?
No, just tell everybody to hang in there. Again, it was never going to be a great year. Keep your head up. Keep watching. And as always, Chuck,
go Pack, go.